If you're looking to massively increase the amount of impact your podcast or social media pages will have on the world and also increase how much revenue you're able to generate because of it, then what I'm going to share with you in this episode is going to basically lay out the path that you need to follow in order to achieve this. Hey, what's going on, everyone? What's going on, everyone? My name is Alec Hassan, and if you're new here to Digital Ministry Mastery, we provide digital leaders with the tactics they need to create a greater impact and income online, because we believe that if you're working hard to provide a lot of value in the world, then we should be compensated for it. Or, well, I mean, you should be compensated for it if you're doing the work. And also, you don't need to have sponsorships or a really large following in order to achieve success online. But these principles that I'm going to be sharing with you are ones that have helped earn many people like 7 figures online. And if you apply them to your own podcast or your own social media pages, then you can expect to see some massive success online as well. So the first principle that you need to understand is that your aim online should be to build a community. In my previous video, I talked about how we often fall short with making more impact online because our aim is off. You see, we focus on creating content to try to grow our pages, as though having like a big following on our page is the means to the end, as though that's the goal. But when we shift our focus to growing a community, the byproduct of that is that our pages are naturally going to be having a larger following on them. But why community? Well, we as people, we thrive, human beings, we thrive in community, and, we're seeking community to be part of. That's why it's like in school, we're trying to find like what groups to hang out with, what lunch table to sit at, things like that. In nature, there are animals that survive and thrive because they're in a pack, they're in a tribe. And when an animal is exiled from their pack, it's essentially a death sentence for that animal. And a lot of psychologists have linked that the reason why people get so anxious with things like public speaking or being like ostracized from a group is because it triggers this feeling of like fight or flight, that like if we're exiled from a group, we're going to die because we're going to be out in the cold in the wilderness by ourselves, which means we have a less chance of survival. But nowadays, we have homes, we can be very self-sufficient on our own, but there's still that internal mechanism that has us desire to be in community. Now, I'm not saying that we should care about what other people think, but when we feel we aren't part of a community, especially a community that we want to be in, we feel hurt, So human beings, we thrive in community. We strive to be included in the best communities, and, we want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And, it's a natural drive for us to want to, like be part of these groups. Because as human beings, we should be leveraging as digital leaders, we got to leverage this natural mechanism in our podcast, in our social media channels, because when we do this, we're going to be experiencing a lot more growth on our pages. But it starts by focusing on community first. And if you're building a community, is something, if building a community is something that you want to do and you're ready to get started doing that right now, then I recommend, pause this video, click the link in the description, because this link is going to lead you to a free 5-day training, totally free, packed with a lot of great wisdom, a lot of great nuggets of gold and lessons that are going to help you jumpstart the process of forming an engaged audience and a loyal community around your podcast or your social media pages. Again, it's 100% free. If you like these videos, if you like these episodes and this content, it's going to be like a deeper dive training into stuff that we're talking about here. And it's going to help you really kickstart your journey to forming a strong community for yourself. In fact, the reason why shows like Joe Rogan's podcast, Howard Stern's show, the reason why these things got big is because they were able to form a really strong community. Because people listen to Joe Rogan because they identify with the things that Joe Rogan talks about. They share the same interests. It's kind of like when you're listening, at least for the people that like his content, to them, it feels like they're listening in on a virtual friend group. But basically, the friends are just his fans. Same thing with Howard Stern. They have their own inside jokes. Baba Booey or what, they got their jokes that only people who watch his shows really understand. Another example, I use this one a lot, CrossFit. CrossFit is a great example of community because CrossFit, it's literally just a style of exercise, but it's gotten so big because they've leaned so heavily into the community aspect of it. So now there's things like the CrossFit Games, it's countless shows devoted strictly to CrossFit, even like podcast episodes, YouTube channels have gotten huge because they're just talking about stuff that people feel part of. So if you're questioning whether a community could be built around your brand, I can confidently say that yes, it can, because there's communities out there for people who build like chicken coops in their backyard. There's communities for people who drink coffee, and you better darn bet I'm part of one of those communities. A little coffee sip right there. So, I can guarantee that you're capable of forming a community around your show as well. So, how you build this community is something that will take more than a single episode to explain. So for now, I just want to make sure that you know that in order to make more impact and income online, you have to recognize the importance of having a community. Because once you have the foundation laid and you start building that community on top of it, you can nurture people and bring them into your community. I learned a really cool visual representation of this process from Leo Armad. He's helped build Instagram pages to like hundreds of thousands of followers, people making 7 figures online, things like that. And he relates this process to a beehive, where basically, we are the bees. Our podcast and social media pages, that's like the beehive, and the people who follow us and join the community, that's like the pollen that's on the flowers. And then the flowers themselves, that's where we get the followers. And so like the flowers, I guess, that would be like the various traffic sources where we can grow our audience online. So that'd be places like Facebook groups, it'd be Facebook, it could be Instagram, it could be Instagram pages. So it's kind of like a flower field could be like Facebook, and then the individual flowers could be like the Facebook groups. YouTube could be like the flower patch of flowers, and then the individual channels could be like the individual flower, so to speak. So yeah, I hope that, that kind of made some sense there. So, bees, they go to many different flowers so they can gather up as much pollen as possible to bring back to the beehive. So sometimes you might land in a flower and it only has like a little bit of pollen. Other times you might make it big and you land on a flower, it's got a whole lot of pollen. You're like, wow, allergies. But the process is you go to these different traffic sources, similar to like how a bee goes to different flowers. And then you bring back as much pollen or as many people as you can into your community, which is like the beehive, so to speak. So then what happens, when bees bring enough pollen to the beehive, they make honey. And in this analogy here, honey would essentially be like when you start generating revenue. So, it's kind of a cool thing to visualize. I really liked how he broke it down like that, so I wanted to share it with you. So if you're looking for practical tips to form a community around your own show, I have the link in the description for you to click on, and you can join the free 5-day training to help you jumpstart your process for forming an engaged audience and a loyal community for your podcast. So if you really like this episode or any of the prior episodes, I really highly recommend you click that link, go there right now. It's totally free and you're gonna get a lot of value from it. So thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.